right, I call this budget meeting, Urban Renewal Agency meeting to order at 7 a.m.
PM.
Excuse me, PM, thank you. Roll call, we have. Why don't we just do a roll call?
Okay. Dory Drago. Here. Stephen Fuss.
Here.
Lisa Middlestorm.
Here.
Emerald Lantis.
Here.
Edith Velasco. Here. Alejandra Mendoza. Ethan Salata.
Here.
Heather Baumgartner.
Here.
Brenda Prophet. Here. Paul Kiefer.
Here.
Christina Cuevas. Richard Rockwell.
Here.
Karen Pettigrew.
Here.
So Christina Cuevas did announce that she was gonna be absent, so she is excused. We'll go on the next, appoint the budget committee chair. So I need some nominations and then we'll vote for who is gonna be the chair for this budget committee meeting.
I nominate Ms. Lemon.
I second. Is there any other nominations? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Any opposed? All right, Mr. Salata, you are up.
For the letters,
You'll start at number 4.
establish ground rules for the meeting. So length of the meeting,
So right here, you have another sheet that goes. The top gun.
so length of the meeting does not exceed 15 minutes. This is always fairly short meeting. Continue. Breaks, so usually no breaks for this meeting. Length of the individual speaking time, length limits, usually 3, applies to all individuals. Review process. 1, the budget officer will present the budget message and budget document. 2, the budget committee may ask questions as we go along. 3, the budget committee chair will ask if the public has any comments. 4, budget committee may approve the budget by motion. 1, if the budget presentation exceeds the length of the meeting, budget committee may extend the budget committee meeting by consensus to May 20th. No further public comment will be taken at the second meeting.
Yeah, that would be good. That you just went, did we decide on the length of the meeting? 15
Yeah.
minutes.
That's what it said.
Okay.
Nobody decided.
Okay, so we'll just go 15 minutes. Yeah. And then you'll just turn it over to, the budget message for Martha.
Turn this over to the budget message for Martha.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming. On page 3 is the budget message. Members of the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee. The Boardman Urban Renewal Agency was formed with the idea of adding utility infrastructure and streets to areas that were blight or undeveloped. The vision was started over 25 years ago, but has established the foundation that has allowed for the currently identified projects to be feasible. Within the Urban Renewal Agency, there are 3 districts known as the Central Urban Renewal District, the West Urban Renewal District, and the currently added North Urban Renewal District. Tonight, we will review the budget for each district. As the city grows and expands, the needs and opportunities change as the needs of the community change. The Central Urban Renewal District will have a busy year with lots of infrastructure going into that district. The West Urban Renewal District, however, is seeing a slowdown of projects and winding down. The North Urban Renewal District was established in the northeast section of town to accomplish a similar goal of the other 2 districts in promoting development. This year, an anticipated loan from the city to Central Urban Renewal District is for water and sewer infrastructure and some streets in the southeast Boardman area. Expanding these services will allow for more development to occur within our central part of town, and the increase in the assessed value will help to recoup these costs. The West Urban Renewal District has fulfilled its liability with the city, and no funds are due for repayment. No additional funds will be levied for West Urban Renewal District this year. In the North Urban Renewal District, plans for land purchases, new streets, and water and sewer line infrastructure are anticipated. This area is being designed for commercial use along Northeast Front Street and North Olson Road, with housing development to be considered in the area behind these lots. There is a lot of planning, a lot of what ifs, and a lot of consulting as ideas are brought to the table and feasibility and resource availability are considered. Some ideas are easily discarded, while others remain on the table for further consideration and analysis. It's an exciting time in Boardman as the growth pushes us to create on the empty canvases we've had for so long. The added amenities will bring new opportunities and added benefits to our community. Thank you for your continued support on the Budget Committee. I will now present and review with you these financial plans. First, we will start with our Central Urban Renewal District, which you will find the budget on page 7. Our Central Urban Renewal District had a healthy beginning cash balance that we're going to be carrying forward to use in our projects. Under grants and loans, you see that has really grown. So that is part of the what ifs. If some of these current plans that we are further reviewing and analyzing seem to be a possibility, that's what these what ifs are. If once we do our analysis, it turns out this isn't what we thought, it's not feasible, these plans would not continue. Some of our infrastructure projects would be funded based off of what the infrastructure is. So water would be funded through the water reserve of putting the money. Sewer would be from the sewer reserve, and then street would be from the street reserve if we went forward with any of these projects. We do have Southwest Loop Road. That's what we're calling it, although it is going to be a kind of front street, which will also add Southwest Oregon Trail Boulevard and then connect out here to Tatone. And once that is completed, we will anticipate starting South Main Street. So it's kind of a mixture of funding. Not all of that project is funded through Central Urban Renewal. Some of it is, and some of it is funded through the city. We're just trying to maximize our use of the Central Urban Renewal District, get the projects in and done, and then be done with Central in its maximum indebtedness, and then just recoup what we can get in the coming years, but having no more indebtedness with Central. So that's kind of one of the what ifs and one of the ideas that we would like to do with Central Urban. Any questions on Central? So your West Urban Renewal District, you will notice that right under that, that's on page 10. I do have updated, I apologize, your first copy was a couple days too late. We're talking with our consultant as to what is the process so that we could freeze West Urban Renewal. That is one that we have identified that there are no other projects that we would be doing out of West Urban Renewal District. And so we do not anticipate levying any taxes for West Urban Renewal District in this fiscal year. And the funds that are remaining in there, we will use as was indicated in the West Urban Renewal District plan. And of course, we've identified to infill sidewalks as still a priority with that area having such proximity to the grade schools and a lot of kids having to walk to school. So having that safe routes to school for kids has been identified as one of the priorities for those funds.
So what you're really saying is you're gonna take this last 200,000 and spend it on sidewalks or something over in this,
In the west.
the
Yes.
west. And then we'll close that in next year's budget.
We're working with the consultant at the official process, and we want to close a district, but not the agency, so depending on what the actual process is, we're gonna follow the formal process.
We want to be able to access the money, and if we totally close it, all the money would have to go back.
The taxing district. Yes.
Just a quick question. And being the West, are we, this might be completely off topic or another budget, but the park back here, or hillside?
Hillview.
Are we looking at doing that? That's not the whole project, but the infrastructure around that, not the infrastructure, the planning portion.
So
Does
with,
that come out of this?
no, so with urban renewal districts, your benefit with an urban renewal district is that when you use that money to put infrastructure in like sewer, water and streets, that raises your assessed value. And that additional increase in assessed value is the tax money that gets sent back to the urban renewal to recoup the funds that it spent on putting in the infrastructure. When we develop something that is on our land and it's just a park that doesn't really, there's not much of that assessed value to get us to recoup that money. So we put this where we can get that tax benefit, but other things like parks and so forth are gonna be in the city budget.
Thank
Mhm. Okay, on page 12, we have our North Urban Renewal District. Last year was the first year that we received taxes from the North Urban Renewal District. We had budgeted 65,000 with it being brand new. That was kind of the figure we had gotten from the tax assessor. And we actually got about 160,000 come in. And that's what that beginning cash balance is. So we've increased the expectations of the tax dollars coming in, although we always allow for those delinquent accounts. You know, they may have paid last year, but there's no guarantee they're gonna pay this year, so we're budgeting 150,000 for taxes coming in this year in North Urban Renewal District. Again, we're reviewing some projects and some possibilities. We're actually contemplating something new with the North Urban Renewal District and possibly getting a loan from Business Oregon to put in some of this infrastructure. And the way Business Oregon handles these loans for urban renewal districts is the repayment schedule is based off of what they anticipate we would collect in tax revenues. So it's very similar to the way we've done our other urban renewal projects where in that case, the city upfronts the money, and then as the urban renewal district collects tax dollars, that's the payment it gives to the city. Business Oregon works in a similar way. Our repayment would be based off of the tax dollars received. So it wouldn't cost the city additional funds if we went that route. And again, that's one that we are still looking into and working with consultants on. But that is something we are contemplating in the North Urban Renewal District.
So under this figure on revenue sources, grants and loans, is the 4 million, you're thinking about borrowing part of that money,
Yes, borrowing all of that money.
borrowing all of that money.
So that you can speed up development.
Yes,
And would we be borrowing that all from WorkSource Oregon, or would we be getting some of it from the building?
no, this one would all be through Business Oregon. So
How would you do that?
we have some development coming in there, some commercial development coming in there. And by timing it just right with that development going in and us putting in this infrastructure, the tax base increase would be pretty substantial. That those tax revenues coming in would all go to refund, to repay this loan. So the city doesn't have to upfront any money like we have in the past for all of our other urban renewal district projects.
Yeah, these are all our dollars. And again, the whole point of the urban renewal is to bring in business, so,
If it's gonna bring in business, if
Correct.
it's gonna bring in those dollars,
correct.
it's worth the risk, I guess is what I mean, it's like.
And, you know, and, yeah, and obviously this is an investment, but the goal would be everything we spend over there for the roads would be 100% paid back through the urban renewal. And that's gonna take time, so that's the goal.
So you're still investigating it, but what if you can't pay it all back with the taxes?
That's an analysis that the state does. So it's not us just saying, yeah, we think we can pay it back. It's a whole analysis that the state would do before they would issue the debt, before they lend us the money. And also it would be something that would need to be approved by council. Once we get to that point, like projects are identified, we have plans. This is how much exactly it's gonna be, this is what the loan is, the repayment schedule, everything would have to still come to council for final approval. This just allows us that if we do get to that point, we have it here built in.
So you do a lot of work. You're going to do a lot of work. And then eventually bring it to the city council after you've done all the work, just for us to say yes. Is that,
That's the way it has to work.
but what if we say no?
Then it's in here, if it's not viable, then the project will not.
Is this like a one-stop meeting? You know the term I'm using?
Like, we either say yes or we're not doing anything.
No, this is, no, this is so that we have that flexibility if you choose to go that route. If the council chooses to go that route, we have it built into the budget. Right? Otherwise, we'd have to do the supplemental budget process and go that route, which we could do that route as well if you don't want it here. But just because it's here doesn't mean it's approved and it's a done deal. Again, all the details, all of the final information would have to go to council. Cause you're gonna wanna know exactly what the project is, how much water you're getting, how much sewer you're getting, how much street you're getting, what the total cost is.
When does that start?
We have started it. That was-
I wanna know when that starts for the city council to know.
We have. That's what we went and did that development analysis and had that conversation. So the process has started.
So when could you see this potentially get brought forward for the final say?
So right now, we need to go and do, the cost. There's, okay, how much is the roads gonna be? So we're looking at northeast front, we're looking at completing third, we're looking at Boardman over, we're looking at fourth, we're looking at second. So we need to get a cost analysis of what that's gonna be. Then we can then go and talk to Biz to see what their price is gonna be. And then there's some land in there that we talked about that is part of this as well. So all that process has begun.
If I'm hearing people right, this is a budget process through, to use Business Oregon. And if the council doesn't want to do Business Oregon, then they find a different way to pay for it. This is just a budget principle to say, this is what we want to do, this is how we're gonna try to pay for it, but ultimately the city council has the final decision.
Correct.
On how it's gonna be paid.
And this 4 million doesn't have to come from business or from anywhere, if we have it.
Correct.
We just need to find a way to pay it back if we're gonna move forward. Right?
Right, interfunds, intergovernmental funds, like you were thinking the building fund would loan. It has more restrictions to it, to where you have to pay it back like within 10 years. So you don't wanna get too big of a fund from your, loan from yourself, cause you still have to pay it back within 10 years. And Business Oregon, theirs would be longer,
More in line with the length of the urban renewals.
right?
line.
So the payments could be smaller.
Correct. And again.
And they-
Free.
Right, and they, usually your repayments back to Business Oregon, in the first year, your payments are smaller. And as your tax base is increasing and assessed value is increasing, your payments get bigger.
Have you calculated the amount of investment that you need to pay back a $4 million loan?
So that's part of the calculation that Business Oregon does. So they do a whole analysis, on all of that. They need to know what the project would be so that they can figure it into their analysis, what that, if assessed value would increase and so forth. So it's kind of those where you have to do all of this work up front to figure out what it's really gonna cost you in the end. And then once you have all that information, when you can make that informed decision of whether, yes, it's something we wanna pursue or not.
So
But
this-
without having all the information, we have all these questions from all sides.
But you should have most of that information. I mean, if you know what the projects are, we should kind of have an idea of what the investment is.
We're just now starting on it, like we just now hired a consultant to do the development analysis. Just with the land piece, and then we're identifying, we're still waiting for our engineers to get, okay, how much road is it gonna be, what is it looking, yeah. So we're still in pretty premature stages of it. This is just kind of letting you know, this is what we're working on, and this is something we're anticipating, we might bring to you later for approval. But just because it's here doesn't mean it's a done deal.
Or again, when the North Urban Renewal was established, it was established with every single project that we're talking about now. The Boardman, the fourth, the second, North, every single thing is in there, it's listed. The only thing that wasn't listed is third.
So again, when do you think that this would get brought forward to council? Months, years?
No, I think in a couple of months, we should probably have all the engineer information, the development analysis, and probably the information back from Business Oregon.
Imagine 25 to 26, since that's the budget.
Before
Yeah.
that, right?
Well, during that time.
During
that time.
Probably like August or September.
That's what I
Right.
say, probably before you approve it, right?
Not before we approve the budget, but by August or September, they'll have this information for the
Yep.
development.
Yep.
And the overall cost projection.
Thank you.
And what kind of term would the state carry on the loan?
That, and again, it was talking to Nick. That he feels like, I can't remember. Yeah, and some of those, it's possibly a 30, but it could go as low as 20. We just need to see what the amount is. But we had an initial conversation with them that was very general, but kind of laid out again, it's for these streets and this water and sewer. So the general concept is,
Without adding an extension, how long is the urban renewal good for?
it's.
The North Urban Renewal doesn't have an expiration date.
Does it have a 30-year?
And the maximum indebtedness is 27 million. And that doesn't mean we go ask for 27, but you can only go up to 27 over.
But the others had expiration dates?
No, the only one that had an expiration date was,
West.
yeah.
I think one of them found out. You had one, it was something good.
But that's not saying like, and this has been brought up in council, that's not saying we want to, like Central, once we finish South Main and do some work, in that vacant lot area, then it's done. We want to.
All the original projects are
Yep.
completed.
Yep. And then we just would let the, go get it paid off. And the way, when we went for this last bid to do the South Loop and the Main, it came in at such a good price. It almost, our Central Urban will almost pay for all of that work, which is
Good.
Yeah, amazing, so.
We were anticipating just South Main, not the loop road, just South Main coming in about 6 million.
Yeah.
And together it came in at 4.2.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
What was the name of that contractor? Can you say that?
It's pretty hard.
Oh, that's right, okay.
Yep, they've been awarded, so we can say. So those are, the 3 urban renewal districts that we have. And, again, these last 2 pages, page 13 and 14, you'll see they have updated because I removed the taxes from West Urban Renewal that were originally there because we've decided that is not gonna be collecting any more taxes. So, if I get your approval for this budget, the new amount would be $12,469,875. Instead of what's listed on your sample.
Can you repeat that number again, just not me down?
$12,469,875.
Those numbers. Right?
Correct.
Okay. So do we need to replace this number?
Yes.
Okay. So I move that the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee approve the proposed budget for the 2025-26 fiscal year as presented. In the amount of $12,469,875 I further move that the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency Budget Committee certify to the Moore County Tax Assessor the request for the Boardman Urban Renewal Agency for the maximum amount of revenue that may be raised by dividing under section 1C, Article 9 of Oregon Constitution and ORS Chapter 457. Here. Here.
For Stephen, yeah.
Either way.
Thank you. So, we go to the next one, ask the public to the comments.
We need a vote. We need to do a vote.
On that specific one.
All in favor? No.
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 It's gonna be looking second.
There you go, thank you. Any discussion? Okay, no discussion. All in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes. Now where do you
We waited, was it 7:15?
So, like,
7:80.
go? You just like, sorry, so
You can ask if anybody would like to do public comments.
Yeah, do we have any public who'd like to take public comment? Alright. There we go, alright, that's adjourned. That, whatever. So much so. There you go. Thank you, so please don't. I move to. Yeah, I need to use restroom to go into the next.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. All right, I call the budget committee meeting for the city of Boardman, May 13, 2025, at 7:34 p.m. To order, we'll do a roll call, please.
Lori Drago. Here. Stephen Bud.
Here.
Lisa Middlesworth. Here. Emerald Dances. Here. Kata Velasco. Here. Alejandro Mendoza. Ethan Salata.
Here.
Heather Baumgartner. Here. Brenda Prophet. Here. Paul Kiefer.
Here.
Christina Cuevas. Richard Rockwell.
Here.
Karen Pettigrew.
Here.
And like the urban renewal, Christine Cuevas is excused. All right, so we'll need to appoint a budget committee chair.
I move to appoint Heather Baumgartner.
Second. Okay, got a motion and a second. Is there any other nominations? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right,
Alright, so the budget committee will need to come to a consensus on ground rules for the length of the meeting should not exceed 9 p.m. Breaks. We should take a 5-minute break at 8:15 p.m. Does everybody agree with that? 45 is about halfway. Okay, length of individual speaking time, 3 minutes, applies to all individuals. The review process will consist of the budget officer will present the budget message and budget document. The budget committee may ask questions as we go along. The budget committee chair will ask if the public has any comments. The budget committee may approve the budget by motion. If the budget presentation exceeds the length of the meeting, the budget committee may extend the committee meeting by consensus to May 20th. No further public comment will be taken at the second meeting. Thank you.
And sometimes we're trying to say the budget committee meeting is. Dear Boardman Budget Committee members, the city of Boardman has been noted in various newspapers and statewide reports as one of the fastest growing cities in Oregon. This growth stems from the increase in available jobs and the quality of life that is enjoyed here. This tasks the city employees and council with busy days of planning, reviewing, consulting, and implementing various programs and projects. We are constantly entertaining potential developers as we regularly issue building permits. We encounter new opportunities that challenge us to learn, just like there are opportunities that just seem to fit perfectly. This budget encompasses those projects of which have been prioritized and are presented for your review and approval. As part of a look back on last year, we are proud to say that our general obligation bond water and wastewater improvements have been completed. The project closed out in April of 2025. The water and sewer lines down Northwest Columbia Avenue were also put in place and the new road laid on top. Southeast Front Street and Southeast First Street were completely redone earlier this year. These beautiful streets look amazing and have really improved the aesthetics of those areas, provided safe sidewalks for pedestrians, as well as a smooth ride for the drivers. In the coming days, we will start construction of Southwest Loop Road, or Southwest First Street, and Southwest Oregon Trail Boulevard. You may have noticed our public works employees are already clearing up those areas. This new road will connect perpendicularly to Totone Street, giving us another route from Southwest Front Street to the south of Boardman. Shortly after, the demolition and reconstruction of South Main Street will take place. This project is one that has been anticipated by the community for a very, very long time. These projects are expected to be completed by the end of the summer. For fiscal year 2026, we plan on doing some chip sealing on some streets based on the street analysis provided by Anderson Perry and Associates. The infrastructure projects this year will also include wastewater and sewer projects. Oh, that's the same. Sorry, water and sewer projects. We waited patiently for Lagoon 1 to dry out to begin the dry biosolids removal process. After this process has been completed, we can place it back in line for wastewater collection. Also in wastewater, we will have the installation of the septic and headwork station. This will increase the efficiency of our lagoon system by grinding biosolids to a finer consistency before entering the lagoon system. When we look at all our assets and the value they bring to the city, we also include our employees. This year, employee training will be a focal point. Work in this area has already started as we have identified the positions needed, updated job descriptions, reviewed our equipment needs, and identified the training and certifications required for each. This will increase our labor force's skills, abilities, and certifications. We are a small town with big dreams, but we're all in the same dream and we're making it happen. Thank you for dreaming with us. We'll start with our general fund on page 7. So our general fund encompasses all of our operating funds for the general government. With our resources this year, one of the big differences that you'll notice is under grants and loans. So last year it showed 5.9 million and this year 3.4. Last year we had the grant come in for the incubator building of $1.5 million. That's where that was originally and now has its own fund, which is included in the budget, and we'll get to that one later. Those funds will be tracked completely separately, and they're, well, when we get to them, I'll speak more to it. But that's what that was included last year. You will also see that our state revenue, we budgeted that one conservatively. I'm not 100% sure where that will fall. Those are distributed based on population. And where our population was just in the last couple of weeks recognized as being adjusted by Portland State University. I don't know if they will use the new figure or if they will stay with the December figure if the state has already used that figure. So we've budgeted with the December figures. But if they do decide to use our new updated population figure, which has put us over 5,000 in population, we may see higher shared revenues from the state. Also under grants and loans, that is where our money comes in from the enterprise zones. And previously, the council has spoken about a housing initiative committee, and so this year we will also have a housing initiative fund created, so those funds are tracked completely separately. And so $1 million of the enterprise zones is earmarked for that housing initiative fund. So that's that other reduction there. In our expenditures, this will be the same pattern in about all of our funds. You're gonna notice that our biggest increase in expenditures is gonna be under salaries and payroll costs. Our last bargaining agreement was finished up, you could say finished up on Friday, just this last Friday. So not having final numbers or a final idea of where it was gonna land, there's some cushion built in for those final agreements. Like I said, The attorney left here about 4 PM on Friday. And that was about the time they were done. So, and it still needs to go to council for approval, but you're gonna notice that that's the same pattern in most of the funds. Those have been increased to account for.
So the payroll costs through all of this have come up a lot, not just a little. And it's because it's more than the salaries.
Yep. And we had, our PERS, has came up. So PERS is reevaluated every 2 years. So they give you your rate for the next 2 years and then it changes again. They do a whole valuation report and tell us what those are gonna be. We increased, depending on which tier our employees were, from 3.2% to about a 4.2% increase in PERS. Also, our health insurance. We have gotten from CIS that, it is not to exceed an 8% increase. So we go ahead and use the maximum because it could potentially be at the 8%. And that also includes with CIS, that also includes our health, our dental, and our vision insurance. So kind of a combination of all of those potential increases is what is reflected in the budget.
Percentage wise, what is that?
Of an increase,
Or your payroll costs to your payroll?
it's gonna be, well, I don't have all the final figures for the bargaining agreement. Because some of those deferred comp percentages also went up as part of the bargaining. So it was about 28%. I'm gonna say we're probably about a 35% of an increase.
Payroll cost percentage of.
Of payroll. We're probably closer to 60% with all of the increased, the maximum. The 8% for health insurance, the additional 4% for PERS, the additional for deferred comp.
So what you're saying is when I used to figure 51%, now I can figure 60?
Yes,
Holy cow.
yeah, and because we also had, the police bargaining, earlier this year. But on July 1st, they have the next set of what they agreed to come in, and there's some increases there as well. Deferred comp, so kind of a combination of all of those. Yes.
Just so I understand, general government here, under salaries, so I guess it doesn't mean salaries, but general government, what employees are those? I just wanna make sure I understand that.
I know you're looking at the full-time equivalent, it gets a little funky because, Brandon is in general government, but because he also oversees the water fund, the sewer fund, the building department and so forth, he gets shared across those,
Gotcha.
finance the same way, so budget-wise, in the equivalent of 1.75 full-time employees is
Is what it's
included, yeah.
got it, okay, I just wanted to make sure
But actual physical bodies, there's like 6 different bodies.
that this
There-
would be in
yes.
here. Okay, thank you.
Again, down in public safety, our biggest increases are there with, the bargaining agreement benefits. If we turn the page, we have our code compliance. Uh-huh.
I'm down at the Catholic Church's Police Department. And last year, we said 571,000, and the year before, we were at 472. And this year, we're down to 267. So, that makes me assume that they purchased in the rotation of the vehicles. They purchased, and now they're down to only needing 1 or 2.
We're doing 3 vehicles this year, one with Prez funds. We are adding, in this budget, we do have 1 additional police officer or sworn officer being added. In entry level, which is the one we have to send to the academy, then they come back and do the in-house training. And so it takes a while for them to actually be out on the road on their own. And we want to get started now with recruiting for that and So once that sworn officer is ready to hit the road, we have a patrol vehicle for them. And it's taking 9 months at least, from the time that a vehicle is ordered to the time it actually arrives and is ready to go. Yeah, it can take a long time.
Community development. What was that?
You are on. Okay, yeah, so page 7. I have more than one community development, I had to figure out which one. So on page 7, community development, yes, so last year you see it had a 0 and this year is 265,000. I have been trying to remove everything out of. It's on page 9, it's called the non-departmental. The state doesn't really like the non-departmental, they want it actually in one of the other ones, so I'm trying to extract as much as I can from there to place it in. One of the ones that fits the best. So this one, the majority of the 265,000 is what we pay the chamber, we contract with them to do our tourism. Our tourism outreach, and that's what the majority of this is. And if you look on page 9, that's where you see that one is, zeroed out. We've been trying to move things,
So,
and
sorry, when you say tourism, what does that entail?
so when we get hotels in town, the council has adopted an ordinance for them to pay transient room tax. That transient room tax, a percentage of that must be used on tourism. Bringing tourists to town, that's what it boils down to.
For sure.
So we can either do that in-house, have staff in-house, and we're pretty much free to do the tourism advertising as we wish. Or we can contract out. The city has chosen to contract out with the chamber, and they've been doing that for years and years and years. And so that is the report that the chamber includes in the city council city council meetings. Every month is what have they been working on? And it's because that's who we've contracted out to do all of our tourism, advertising and outreach.
So we spend $265,000 on that.
No, theirs is about 137,500, I think. And the other community development is we're working on, some of you were here earlier, on parks. We're working on improving our parks. So, this is for the smaller park items that we may, okay, we need to replace a couple of benches. Our capital parks, big ticket items will be under capital. But this is, like I said, we need to replace some benches, or we need to add a couple more picnic tables, or we recently took City Park back under our direct care. And so there's been some upgrades we've had to do to the restrooms. If you haven't been in them, go look at the floor. It's beautiful. Our public works guys did an awesome job. So it's for those type of items. Okay, so on the next one, on page 8, this code compliance said just salaries and payroll costs. Planning is about the same, just salaries and payroll costs that have gone up, but also please note that we have a contract with Gillum County who reimburses the city on a quarterly basis for 3/4 of one full-time equivalent. Because we do the planning for Gillum County.
The planning and the building.
We also do the building, but for the building, there's no additional reimbursement that they give us because we get to keep all of the permit fees. All the plan reviews, all the permit fees, they don't get any of it, they get 0.
To the lady report.
Right, so we keep all of that, and for planning, planning that isn't a revenue maker. So they're just reimbursing us for 0.75 full-time equivalents. And they're getting busy too, so.
That's what I was gonna say, at some point, that probably won't be coming this way anymore.
Under our facilities, so capital purchases is one that's a little bit higher. This is for HVAC systems that are still in this building that were originally placed there when the building was built, so just anticipating that if one of them goes or a couple of them go, we can replace them. And, for those unexpected major repairs that happen when, you know, a valve might break off and cause damage.
I did not do it.
No, it was not you, it wasn't anybody, it just broke off. We have some awesome pictures, you can get those from Amanda later.
Was classic.
And then again, for our non-departmental, just trying to clean that one up and move things over. The one thing that does remain, and that is what it's for, is any of our transfers from our general fund will always come out of the non-departmental. That's where they will always be reported.
So these top three will eventually go away as well, or is that where they're supposed to be?
They may go away as well. And you also have,
There's some pretty big differences in transfers and contingency from last year and this year.
yes, so it depends on how much money we actually spend in the fiscal year, how much we will have to carry over as a beginning balance, how much we anticipate spending, and if there's enough to move over to our reserves, we move them in that next year. Or if one of the funds, like the water fund or the sewer fund, needs a little bit more help, we will move funds to them in that next budget year. So it kind of depends on cash flows. You know, the more cash you kind of have, the more that you can put into your reserves. When we do a bunch of projects like we have been, and we've been spending the cash, there's not as much to put into the reserves. That's why that will fluctuate so much.
You're talking about transfers?
Yes.
Okay, then let's talk about contingencies.
Yeah, there's both of them.
I think that's extraordinarily high. In all of the funds. Because the city council makes, that is, we have no control over that. That is, you're just using the funds and then we do this, so we don't have to do a supplemental budget. And when you go from like zero, and last year we went to 645,000, and this year it was at 2 million. And that's gonna be consistent through this budget. I think we need to think about contingency.
So are you suggesting to lower it and then do supplemental budgets? Is that what you want? Do more supplemental budgets?
Yes,
Well, I
because
think there's
the
more
city,
transparency.
the city council, our only control over the city manager is budget. Period. I can't come in here and tell him that I don't like him paving the street out there. I control the money as city council. And so this means that I'm giving him, and if you go through all this, but I'm giving him 2 million out of just the general fund that he doesn't have to mention to us until he's done this. And I think when you go from like 400,000 or 645,000 to 2 million, you're probably going a little high.
But with the new purchasing policy, that'll change from the fact that I have to go this, like, above.
Well, and also that is not the case. So contingency is there, because whenever we budget, that is why it is in the different categories that are in the end. So materials and services, for example, is one of the categories. And those categories are dictated by the state. So in that materials and services, if we're gonna go over 10% of that overall total, it has to be a supplemental budget. It doesn't matter what my total contingency is. It still has to be a supplemental budget if that one category, I need to appropriate more than 10% in expenses. So it's by category. The contingency is just kind of your savings account, because you don't know if materials and services is gonna need more, or if capital outlay, or which one is gonna need it. So you can hold it in this contingency, and then through a supplemental budget, if it's gonna be more than 10%, then you allocate it to that category.
So I don't need to be startled about the contingency fund, because there is still a supplemental budget
That would have to
process that we
happen.
have to follow.
Right, and even if there was, if it was less than 10% for that specific category, in order to move it, to appropriate it, it would be a resolution through the city council. So regardless of it, still would have to come to city council.
But the deal is, if you look at the figure above it under transfers, which we've always, that's been our consistent way we've ran the cities. Is we put money into the transfer fund, then if we needed it, we did what you're saying.
When you put it in transfers, that means I'm moving it from this fund to that fund, not within the fund. In case materials and services needs more.
So I would say your unappropriated ending fund balance is your savings. This is money that you are setting aside not to use in this fiscal year, holding it over for a larger expenditure.
Yeah.
Will it gain interest too?
Yes, yep, whatever's in the bank is gaining interest. And, the way we allocate the interest at the end of every month, we take what the previous month's ending balance was for each fund and allocate it proportionately.
So you move just the interest?
Mhm.
Are you anticipating that it's gonna be that big of a jump in your contingency? Are you anticipating something to spend that much more money?
No, we don't have like, oh, we expect something catastrophic to occur that's gonna cost 2 million. But it gives you that, so if you put it in the reserve, like Lisa said, you can't touch it. If you need money in your materials and services, if you had some major break and you put it all in your reserve, you legally cannot touch it. If you have it in contingency, that's what the definition of the contingency is. It's kind of like your savings for that rainy day in case there's some major break, in case something unexpected happens. You still have to do the whole process to either move it by resolution if it's less than 10% or do a supplemental budget if it's over 10%. But you are allowed to do that after it's 4. But once you put it in that reserve unappropriated means not spendable.
And the transfers means that you have that money, it belongs to the general fund, but if the sewer fund needs it, you could transfer some dollars.
Yes,
To the
and
sewer.
these are budgeted ones. So I could say, well, I'm anticipating getting $3 million in grants. And I'm gonna move all $3 million into my general reserve. What if I only receive $1.5 million because I didn't get the 1 grant? Just because I budgeted moving the 3 as a transfer, well, if I didn't get the other $1.5 million grant, I don't have that money to move. So these transfers are expected, but not 100% guaranteed. Those are based off of the different fundings that we anticipate getting in the year.
Could our contingency fund be, I think and some people are kind of with the number. But could the contingency fund be that number because the number of projects we're doing?
Yes, we have a lot of.
Did we learn from a road?
Oh, yeah.
From Columbia Avenue. Yeah, that one, pretty much took up all the overtime for the year in a month.
But just because you have that amount in contingency doesn't mean we have to spend it.
Oh, no, definitely not. It's only gonna be if one of the categories, and again, supplemental budgets happen towards the end of the year as I'm getting a feel of how much more money is really gonna come in. Are they really gonna be needing help to help pay for these expenditures? That's why you usually see them in the spring, not at the beginning of the year.
So what if we don't use all that contingency fund, you keep that same amount into the next budget year?
Correct, so everything that is not spent gets calculated for the beginning balance
So you
of
have
the
to-
next year, yeah.
So you're transferring less money to the other funds. Is that because they're becoming self-sustaining?
It's because we've been spending a lot on our infrastructure projects, so there's less money to transfer over.
Thank you.
So welcome. So our water fund is on page 12. talking about helping funds. Our water fund, had about a $235,000 budget shortfall is what we're anticipating this fiscal year. So we've adjusted our expectation for next year. Again, it's something that we're analyzing, we're reviewing, trying to look at what's going on. But in this case, the general fund will be assisting the water fund with $150,000. And that's what you see if you're in the resources under transfers. And that's what part of what we just saw in the non-departmental transfers, $150,000 of that is going into the water fund. Also, it's salaries and payroll costs that are up a little bit more because of all of those, bargaining contracts.
So you're saying you're wanting to know, or you're trying to figure out why we're taking in less in fees and services,
Correct.
correct? And the same for, where I see utilities was down too, is that all part of it?
Yeah, that it's the
That's
same.
what,
Yeah.
that's all part of it, okay.
Mhm.
just want to make sure. So we don't know why?
Nope, we're currently investigating it. Our engineers working on some things, our public works director, some things. I'm looking into some things. We did have the majority of our radio reads installed, so that's a completely new program being satellite read, so we're looking into that.
That's the one.
But to be conservative, we've reduced what we anticipate in the fees.
Mhm.
But not meaning that that is where they will land. We're currently analyzing that situation.
So when I look at this, so when you talk about your entire budget, is that the amount that we're making as a city by collecting water fees, correct?
Yep, all of our water fees, everything has to do with water.
And according to this, what, 250,000 shortfalls, what would you say?
255.
Wow. That seems like a lot. So,
But nothing out of the ordinary for our water fund in additional expenses. Just kind of, regular repairs, maintenance, and new meters, we're adding new meters all the time.
The radio reads are almost all done to, what is it called?
Well, with more housing, now, people, I mean, that's one of you thought that more than we didn't anticipate more housing.
Which is some of the confusion, because we have increased, and yet we had 100,000 shortfall in residential, which makes no sense, so.
People been overcharging people for years.
I'm hoping that.
On page 15 is the sewer fund. The sewer fund also is getting $150,000 assistance from the general fund. Don't be scared with the change in the beginning cash. So with our sewer fund, that one will build up for 2-3 years, and then we make the big transfer over to the sewer reserve. And then the beginning cash balance comes down, and then we let it build up again, and then we transfer it over to the, because your sewer reserve is the one who pays for your capital project. So when we need a new sewer line or to replace a sewer line, it's being paid out of the sewer reserve. So it's not that the sewer fund is like also, suffering financially. It's not, we probably transferred a little too much last year, because we transferred, if you look down at the bottom there, third one up, almost 1.4 million.
Compared to the previous year.
Yes, but we do have a lot of sewer projects coming in this year, so. We build up our reserves, then we spend it on the infrastructure, and then we start, yeah, last year was a big street project, and then we got quite a few in sewer this year.
They had to put at least $1 million into Paul's house. I mean, I saw it.
Well, and we keep apologizing that, because a lot of people just hear like, well, Paul got the extra special care, got the extra. It was so that everybody knows, for some reason in the original plans, his house was left out of being connected to the sewer line.
What?
Yeah,
It went in my yard
That does, honestly, that does surprise me.
and underneath the street. I mean, it just,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So then they did have to go back and do extra work there. It wasn't because he was the mayor, it was because his house got left out and he was not gonna have sewer connection.
I don't think that happened, and my wife was,
Yes, so
yeah.
if you don't know that,
I
that's
didn't
what,
know.
yeah.
And the nice thing about it is, I mean, I know it's offset, but the city of Boardman and the employees, took care of a situation that was really bad and they'd have done it for anybody. And that was what was really kind of special, to be able to see that just because it happened to be on my place, they'd have done it for anybody. And
Yes, they
And
were.
they were in multiple locations too.
And it was like all night, right? Like,
yeah, and then the company had the 4 Connells across the street. I mean, they were fixed it at 1 o'clock in the morning and they're rolling the, and they got the spotlight shining in their house and because the connection was right in front of their driveway and, but it wasn't my house like that, because my wife put it. I still heard the roll. Good job, city. It's-
Thank you for your patience, everybody who lives on Columbia. But now you have a beautiful road.
It is a beautiful road.
Raceway.
Yeah,
But
Like that.
we're unable, we have the weather that doesn't allow us to put speed humps like in the
Correct.
state of Hawaii on their roads where it's 45.
Oh, they. It was true.
yeah.
That will totally catch you off guard.
Hey, it is 45 all the way around the island till you get back on the
And
freeway.
there are bumps, all of a sudden you're like, whoa, and then you watch.
I never launched because I followed the speed around.
So no other questions of sewer fund.
No, you're in a rental.
Page 18 is the garbage fund. We have had so much demand for garbage services, especially in the commercial for construction boxes. So, we just had a supplemental budget where we had to increase that like $450,000. So that is why you have, these numbers here. And I had in my description that, we added, so when Waste Connections, who does business as sanitary disposal, came to us last time and increased the rates by a lot. They said this would put us back down to only having the consumer price index increase every year. We didn't get their final numbers in time because we just got it today, a couple of hours ago, actually. But I wasn't that far off. I added a 3% and they came in at 3.06. So this is gonna be fairly close to, yeah. But it'll depend on how many actual garbage services. If we get even more, demand for commercial garbage services, then that'll just keep going up.
Hey, Marta, where do we, for expenditures on what we pay to the county for the transfer station?
For our garbage vouchers,
Yeah, is that on the garbage fund?
there is, yes, garbage fund just under service contracts. And,
That's our total yearly, what we pay to the, or is that with
it's
the?
all included. It's all
That's
included.
all the garbage plus our vouchers.
Yes.
Gotcha. I mean,
Yeah, breakout, but I think that's what you're wanting, Paul, right?
no, I think I've always been in favor of paying more for our garbage for the recycle center, but the council has, made a statement, but I've always felt that we need to pay more for garbage to be able to provide and be stricter with the county on who uses it. I've always been in favor of that. We have a happy medium that I'm okay with. But I am always in favor of paying more for the transfer station to have our citizens take their garbage so they don't throw it somewhere else. And
So, I guess, he brings up a good point, so have we ever, I don't even know, this may not be budget topic, so have we budgeted for potentially adding more citywide garbage cans? The only reason why I say that, and I'm not saying it's because my business was affected, but there is no garbage cans on at least, I think there's one on the corner of Southeast Main, or Southeast Front Street, sorry. And then there's nothing else. So what ends up happening is, now that we got this nice new road, it's built for truck drivers, okay, and hotel stayers and lunch people or whatever. I don't know how many times I get asked during the day if I have a garbage can. Okay,
I don't think
So
anyone is.
no, there's not, and you can go, I think you can put it in the dumpster, they'll allow that, there are 2 dumpsters there, but
Right.
everywhere else, what's happening, they dump their garbage everywhere.
And
And I've literally seen people just take their garbage and just dump it on the road and then they just leave.
the
you know,
trash can in front of the library.
Yeah, I mean, yesterday I came back and
Gone?
So we
There
are
was-
replacing our garbage cans as we speak. Public
Okay.
Works is replacing our garbage cans with our new logo as well.
Mhm.
And we have purchased additional garbage
Thank
cans
you.
that they're gonna be
Excellent.
placing throughout. So yeah, that's a project that is currently in progress. Yep.
so, thank you.
What is the possibility of, and I don't know what it would do for the budget, but to have more cardboard stations, more places to put cardboard, because I think there's a bunch of people like me who shop at Amazon. And so we have a lot more
The
cardboard.
one that we have here outside of City Hall,
There.
is kept clean. I think it's because we're here. It's kept clean and that one does not get as full. So keep in mind that we do have one here in the parking lot next to the little Tots Park.
Mhm.
So like the school district has one at Sam Boardman that's just for cardboard.
And Port Peter's just
There's
cardboard recycle too.
Yeah, we.
Yeah, that's
we have
true,
one. I
specific.
think the food bug has one,
No, not anymore.
not anymore,
We have 2,
just 2 dumpsters now.
because they're putting trash in it.
Yeah, we have,
Does-
we have one at ours and 2 dumpsters.
Pacific Northwest, that car company have one,
North
cause they're,
Carolina.
they're Northwest Performance, whatever that one is.
I think there is one there.
Isn't it the tan
Yes,
containers rather than the
like
darker?
their see-through.
Huh?
like
But it would be
they're
for their
rated.
business.
Right, yeah.
Right, those
I know
are,
they
they
have a
have
grease collector, and then they have the dumpster, but I don't know if they have a
And
cardboard.
it's probably not public.
So we are
Probably
looking at
not.
doing, like, upgrading the recycling and moving it away from over there. Bringing it here, and we can look at adding. here.
Just for,
I mean, it is
just for
okay.
cardboard, I
And
think.
to Mary Kiefer's point, like, it is good to be able to provide those services, we just wanna make sure that we're paying, that we're able to sustain it. That it's not, I think far too often it's been the general fund that is compensating because they increased the price. We have all these vouchers out and this fund cannot handle it, so it's finding the balance, making sure. that-
And that's,
Currently doing
I've
it,
always been in favor of raising it.
and we're doing it 3 times a year, April, July, and October or something, right?
But I always wanted more.
April,
Right, what would it cost to do one more? It's been ranging about $15,000 to $20,000, isn't it?
Yeah, and that was the last big jump, it really was quite a lot.
Yeah. Well, if you go back and look at the actual 23, 24, 700,000. And we're budgeting nearly double that,
in 2 years.
I
We are
mean, just a
budgeting
couple of years.
The
And
garbage company
The
raised
cost
the
is
price
still
twice
less,
in the last.
and the amount. And what do you mean?
I don't know, for those 2 meetings.
Something.
I don't think the garbage fund was ever intended to be a profit margin for the city.
Yeah.
I think when they decided that they wanted everybody to have a garbage can in town, because that's the rule if you live in Boardman, that we wouldn't try to make profit. We would we would keep the rates low so that we weren't trying to make you. We can generate our income from somewhere else,
Right.
not garbage. And we are generating a pretty pleasant income off of the
but
garbage.
sanitary disposal, their last increase was about 28% to us, which was one of the lowest ones. But when we do our garbage vouchers, we're paying the county rates because we're paying it to the county. And that's their account with sanitary disposal. Their rate went up like 36 or 38%.
We had that, when they had
Yeah,
that discussion.
So that,
And the
that's kind of
tough
built
part
into it.
is the discussion of the council on how much do we want to subsidize that fund? And I knew I would get it off topic, but that's always been, always wanted, if I had my way, it'd be every month, and you had to have a driver's license to be able to use it
Are we
on.
charged for the vouchers that are given out? Or are we charged for the vouchers that are used?
We're charged by the tonnage.
Oh, that's okay.
And Finley Foods is not open on the weekends, right? So
No.
it is hard for working people to get that.
Correct.
So I mean,
Because they close it like.
I say
2:30.
thank you. I mean, thank you. I think it's great that we have it 3 times a year. I'd love it if we had it 4 times a year.
But then again, it doesn't affect people who are renting in the apartments.
Yeah,
That's
we had
a
those
big
conversations
conversation
too.
with the council too about
I've
the
had those
vouchers.
conversations several times as well.
Well, before we move on to the street fund, it is 8:20, so we can take a 5-minute break. Cheers.
We'll do that. Hey, so your street fund is on page 21. Just like our other funds, salaries and payroll costs are quite a bit different. We are still focusing on, I know we did a lot of infrastructure streets this last fiscal year. And in 25-26, we're focusing on some of those small repairs, which we would call the chip sealing and the crack sealing. Again, going off of our transportation analysis that Anderson Ferry put together for us and working with them, as to which ones will be prioritized. But that is something that we're wanting to do as well.
So, when you talk about this street fund, does that include, this only includes like just minor repairs or
Right.
things like that?
Yeah,
It-
restriping, replacing
It
signs.
doesn't include, say, like if something needed to be moved or something needed to be taken out in order to improve a street.
Correct.
I got a question about that, but that'll be separate.
So page 24 has our building fund. It's anticipated to just be as busy as it has been. There is no slowing down for the building fund. And like I mentioned before, our building department also also acts as the building department for Gillum County, and, it sounds like they're gonna be pretty busy as well. So, no decreases in fees, it depends on the timing. We look at the timing. I work with my building official with when he expects these to come in and where, one of our big commercial sites decides that they want to now pay for all of their phases, all of their permits upfront. We just received it this last month, although all of the construction is gonna take place in this next fiscal year. That's why it's kind of misleading there, but it's because we've already received all of that money in 25-26. Sorry, 24-25.
Will that money carry over into the
Yeah, that's
actual project? approved
In
so that-
beginning cash, that's
For
already.
another
budgeted.
year or whatever
Yeah.
if you needed to.
Yep. They also have, employees who are, part of the union, and so salaries and payroll costs are reflected with that, as we've seen in the other ones.
8.4 FTE.
What kind of?
Correct, so that is also, again, it's not just the bodies, it's how much of Brandon's time, how much of finance time, how much of payroll time, everybody that kind of touches and oversees those departments, they all get a proportionate share.
And planning's in this too, or no?
I think one of the planners has like 10-15% in there,
Oh, I see.
so not,
Not a lot.
no.
So under professional fees, as an expense, is that Anderson Perry or who would that be?
Name of all of
Because that's a
the
sizable
consultants.
amount. and
Right,
it's
so
sizable.
we have a lot of, consultants going on. We have the economic opportunity analysis, that our building official wanted to have done to help figure out what is this area gonna be doing, and am I gonna need another building inspector in a year or in 5 years? Right, so part of that. So he's got, an economic opportunity analysis that he's working with planning as well on. Part of the developmental code. So he's got some code things that he wants corrected and fixed, so, that consultant as well. A little bit of the transportation systems plan, TSP, is that what?
Yeah.
Systems plan. So it's a lot of different consultants in there. We anticipated getting started on these earlier in this year, 24-25, but just because of the matter of this one has to be done before they can really start this one, or they're waiting for this other piece to be finished before they can really get going. Most of it has moved over to 25-26.
So your contractual fees. I'm assuming that's part of where those studies are being done.
No, contractual fees are the IGA fees that we pay out to mainly Morrow County.
County and stuff.
Yeah,
Okay.
Holy smokes.
yes, because Morrow County gets 50% of the gross permit fees.
50%.
Yes.
And we still stay in the black.
Yeah, 16.
And like I mentioned earlier, Gillum County, they don't get any of their permit fees. We get to keep those. They don't have a whole bunch of them, but
So we keep 50%.
for Morrow County, yes. Gillum County, we keep 100%.
Point out, we only actually keep.
And one of
But
these
the-
days, the laws will change to where cities can use their building funds to.
Are you working on that?
The mayor's conference.
We talk about it at the cities, now,
We're an anomaly.
we are an anomaly compared to other cities. The majority of the cities, they don't have this problem
No,
of being in the black. And
which is the whole reason the
Correct.
state has the law in place in the first place.
Yeah.
Is to protect the hiring and paying power. Building official.
so this is a bad thing to have, but actually a good problem to have, but it's like,
But once again, the payroll cost is 76%. And that does seem outrageous.
Well, where, if is other revenue up in the income, is that where the city's paying back their loan?
No, the transfer, the 146,115, that's the loan payment.
Okay.
So a few years back, we,
I think it was 76%. Oh, of the salaries? Oh,
a few years back, we, got a loan from the building department to create a side account with the state for our PERS unfunded actuarial liability.
Oh, yeah.
And this is our annual repayment back to the building department, the 146,000.
And then on this one, the transfers and the contingency and our reserves are all
So again, yeah,
nice figures.
the one in the reserve, that one is not allowed to be spent at all. It's locked up in that reserve account.
Yes.
Is there any law that says
Well,
we have
that's
to
pretty
keep applying to the reserve account?
No. But because we don't anticipate spending that from the building department, we allocate it there, we leave it there, not allocate, we leave it there in the reserve. Stating to everybody, we have no plans for this, it'll be saved for future needs when they arise.
Can you use the interest off of it?
Yes, so everything that's in here, I do have interest in other revenues is calculated in there. Other
So-
revenues, yeah.
So it's like an endowment fund.
Mhm.
Supposed to increase, but then you give off the interest, correct?
Yep, just the
That's all I-
75 would be what would be left, yep. Okay, so if we move on to our reserve fund, page 28.
There's no note down here, Steve. Do you wanna know?
Yeah, reserve funds on page 28. From our general reserve fund, the beginning cash is very healthy. We've been working on building that one up. If you can see in prior years where it was much lower, we've been working on building that one up. The general reserve is the one that is gonna ultimately fund our parks. Our parks that have its own separate fund and they have no way of making any money, any revenues as we currently are. And again, as we're looking at the different possibilities that the city can have, we're looking at park SDCs. Again, working with consultants, looking at what that looks like, and then ultimately being a council decision if they want to go that route. But currently, with the way we're structured, our general reserve would fund the major park capital improvements. So that's why we're kind of building that one up in anticipation of, we knew we wanted to do something with parks,
You know, won't cost us any additional money.
right? And the parks, master plan is part of that process to identify exactly what does the community need, what does the community want? And then looking at what is that gonna cost, and if we don't have enough for, you know, the big wish list, prioritizing which projects can we do, or can we do these this year, these the next year, and so forth. So again, it's a process and, but that's what that general reserve fund is gonna be, funding. We also, mentioned about purchasing some land. So again, looking at all of our different funding sources, it's that same, land in northeast Boardman area. And also having, the opportunity of purchasing some land back here behind City Hall. So again, if it comes down to count, you know, everything, all the cards playing out right, and council saying, yep, we're gonna buy it, and the seller saying, yep, we're gonna sell it, and it's a good price, and we have everything in line, and the money's there. It's just having that opportunity to do it if it all works out, and if it doesn't, if, you know, the seller backs out or whatever, then we wouldn't, so. The transfer of $1 million out of the general reserve fund, that is to establish the housing initiative fund. So, the general reserve fund will transfer that at the beginning. That's one of the, that I will transfer right at the beginning of the fiscal year to get the housing initiative fund started. And then, in the beginning of 2026, when the city receives its CREST funds, $1 million of that is earmarked to reimburse the general reserve fund for the $1 million that it used to establish the housing initiative. But by establishing the housing initiative right at the beginning, it can start accruing its own interest. And that housing initiative will be all determined by the committee that the council appoints and working with a consultant on what that fund is gonna serve and look like. In our water reserve, not too many projects out of water this year, but we will have some water there on the Southwest Front Street Loop and the Main Street improvements. We got a little bit of water going there. We are also looking forward to the county working on Paul Smith Road. It looks like they're gonna be doing some road improvements. And so we want to take the opportunity to lay new or replace the water and the sewer lines. So we've got that built in here, because if the county does it this fiscal year, we want to be able to do that as well.
Do you think
And
they're gonna put a sidewalk on it?
it's gonna depend on how much easement and right of way they get,
Pretty small.
because it's pretty, yeah.
Especially because it's, but if the canal goes underground,
Mike still thought it was, the engineer still thought it was gonna be difficult to put a sidewalk there. I mean, that was the whole point, right, of doing sidewalk.
Yeah.
but there's no sidewalk with that, so. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm on it.
And then our other water, project is, bank stabilization at collector 2. And those are kind of things we have to do, not optional, so.
Those beacons.
Yes, wait.
So is that under the capital project,
Yes,
the bank stabilization?
yes.
You're live, buddy, you're live.
Going over
And in our sewer reserve fund, like I said, that's gonna be our busiest fund this year with the number of projects. We have, again, Southwest Front Street and South Main Street will have some sewer going in there, the sewer at Paul Smith Road. We're also looking at some stormwater flow improvements, throughout different areas of town. Northeast Front Street, I know we just finished the road and I hate to have to cut into it, but we're gonna have to cut into it. Because there's a sewer line that, oh wait, Northeast Front, sorry, I get confused with my quadrant, there's so many of them, sorry. Northeast Front is over by the soccer field and the splash pad. There's a sewer line we need to move. There's a sewer line we need to move there. So I think this week it already got tore up the road. Or is it next week? It's getting sold?
No.
15.
I drive on it all the time. It's not fun.
Today's the 13th. So, yeah, coming, especially you.
Yeah.
You'd rather, that section of the road will be tore up so that they can move the sewer line.
The city said it would be closed.
Yes,
Yeah, from.
there will be
this-
no access.
Yeah.
From about the
Splash
beginning
pad
splash pad
To
to,
Olson, it'll be closed. And then when it opens up, it will be very smooth gravel, just great.
compacted
Beautiful.
gravel.
That should keep everybody at 25 miles an hour.
Better than it does look now.
So this process we're beginning now, but its cost is gonna carry over into the next year. Also replacing the on-site hypochlorite system. Again, that one's about getting ready to begin this year, but it's gonna carry over into the next one. The headwork screen and septic receiving station, also we're getting started on that one, but the majority of that one will carry into next year. And that one alone is a little over $1 million, so most of that is going there.
And we did get
And in
some money from Amazon to pay for a reimbursement.
right, we're gonna get a $400,000 reimbursement from Amazon for that project.
So is any of this beginning cash part of the GO bonds?
No, the geo bond funds are completely separate. And the other project under sewer projects is the biosolids removal of Lagoon One. So that one is currently being dried out. And, we're very, very, positively thinking that it will be dry enough for us to do a dry removal. If we had to do wet, the cost goes up about 3 times. So, drying it out, hoping for some hot weather.
Contingency set up for that,
The dry
Mhm.
removal.
we have contingency set up for that.
Yes,
Removal?
yes, yep, that's why, yep.
Okay.
We got some contingency in there.
Part of the job. It's a bundle.
I think it goes to the landfill. I think there's a special process that.
And compared to what's storing today.
Our street reserve. Again, it has its share of Southwest Front Street and South Main. That's gonna be the biggest expense on those projects is gonna be street. Those are gonna be completely new. We have, budgeted about $2 million worth of a chip seal or equivalent on existing roads. Working with Anderson Perry to identify and prioritize which ones and what's the best treatment or repair for our roads. We have some extra patching to do, it looks like on Mount Hood, at the Public Works Yard and some other areas around town that need to be patched, that'd be better than 50,000. Northeast front, that sewer, because we're gonna have to cut into the road and then, fill it in with gravel, it's still part of the street. So they'll pay for their share of it. And we have every year tried to put in some sort of a sidewalk project or improvement through town. So we have that in there. And then the big ticket item that I have in here is, we applied again for the congressionally directed spending dollars, which, last time we applied for BCDA, $1.5 million for the incubator building. We were granted that, so we have a fund for those for when BCDA is ready, because that one was applied for strictly construction, so not engineer fees, architect fees, strictly construction. So once they're ready for that phase, the money's there. But this time we have applied for, improvements at exit 165 and design 164. So we anticipate that when they meet, we may hear in September, October, if we've got the funds. But then they don't disperse the funds until the spring. It's budgeted in here for what we have, applied for, which was 3.3 million. And, if we don't get the funds, then that would be a project that obviously would not be completed. But in case we are awarded the funds again, then we have this. And then I will have to do another supplemental budget to open a new fund. Because those funds have to be tracked completely separate. So, busy with tons of projects left and right and all across all of our different funds. On page 32 is the Congressional Community Project Fund, which is the incubator. It has its own separate fund. That money is completely separate, so it earns its share of the interest.
Is that what the other revenue is?
Yes. And that's why, last year it was more to our beginning cash. That extra 30,000 was the interest. And BCDA will get that interest when they need those funds, we call it package deal. My next fund, it's new, the Housing Initiative Fund. That's the fund that will be established with $1 million transfer from the general fund. Also, other revenue is the anticipated interest that it would earn. Like I mentioned, I want to get that one started at the beginning of the year so it can start getting its allocation of interest. And without knowing what the committee is gonna spend the money on from there, I've kind of spread it out so that if there's any land or building improvements, you have some availability. Capital outlay, there's some availability, and then it's in contingency that, and the only thing that is in your reserve unappropriated is the interest. Not that we anticipate you spending all the money in this year, but just kind of putting it in the different categories. Because it is gonna be such a unique committee, that's really gonna be thinking out of the box. I kind of wanted to just give you that flexibility. And, our general obligation bond. So we no longer have the capital project bond, capital project fund, which is where I was keeping track of the expenses for the water improvements, for the 1,000,000-gallon reservoir, for, that big project, because that one has been closed out. There's no more expenses to it. But we still have our general obligation liability obligation. That one is its own separate fund as well. It only accounts for the tax revenues coming in and the money that Amazon pays to the CREDS board, and then the CREDS board forwards to us. So they pay their portion of the bond as if they were on the tax rolls. That is the only thing that is accounted for here. And then the expenditures is strictly only our payments for the GEO bond. And it's based off of our payment schedule.
So what are the reserves for then?
The reserves is the money that we keep from kind of the leftover money from one year to the next. Because of timing of taxes, we won't necessarily have all our taxes when our payments are due. Or to account for if there were a lot of delinquent taxes and we don't collect enough for our payment, that's what that extra cushion allows us to use it. Mhm. And those are all of our funds. The rest that you have are your summaries by, the different funds. And then on page 41, it's by the different categories, and these were the categories I was mentioning, the state requires the budget to be categorized under. They set these categories.
So these reserve funds of 40 million, that is our, I guess I would say profit, like that's our holdover, like we're making money sort of deal, like what Paul talks about. Like, or we're in the black or whatever you wanna say.
The 40 million.
So there's 47 for operating funds and reserve funds, right? 40, is that what?
Oh, no.
No.
Okay, that's what I'm.
No, that's just the total of each fund.
Okay.
And the total of your funds, so up top is all of your resources, all the money coming in per fund, what those are, and then your bottom one is all your expenditures per fund. And so they match.
So your
On your-
reserve, so to that point, reserve fund is not this category over here called reserve unappropriated ending balance. That isn't the reserve fund?
Yes, I was
That answers it.
answering, Richard, he's on the other page, he's on page 39.
I'm on 41 right now.
And
I'm
then, yeah,
for them too.
I know, you're both always, that's why I wanna clarify. So for Richard, page 39, the top ones are all of the revenues coming in, and the bottom table is all the expenditures by fund. So your general fund resources should equal your general fund expenditures.
Right.
Which is the total by fund. And then on page 41, that's where it's broken out by, so all of the funds together, if I break it out by the categories the state has set, that's how much it is for each one.
So
per
operating
category.
for everything is 47 and reserve for everything is 40.
Correct.
And
So it's our reserve funds, so like you were saying, so our general reserve, our street reserve, water reserve, adding those reserves, that's what your total is up top.
That's
For
what that
reserves,
40
yes.
million is.
And see, my beginning comment was on page 41. If you look at the operating contingency, that's $11 million. If you add it up in all those funds
All of them combined.
that are combined. And so, and then you've got 25 million in the reserve for future expenditures.
And
That's
And this
exciting
is-
to me.
it is, and then, but remember that this is the budgeted figure, so like the 3.4 million that we applied for is included in here, but it's not a given that we've got it, right?
Because if you take a look at the all city resources, it comes to 89. But you take about that 20+ million out with the 17 with the building fund that we don't spend. And you take out the geo bond that's still, on the housing initiative and those, I mean. This may not be the most enjoyable thing to go through, but it is pretty exciting to be able to sit here and see all the things that we're able to do
Oh, definitely.
with and we'd be able to be the envy of a lot of areas and understand why. Boardman. So, we are really, really lucky and it's just exciting that we have what we have and to be able to be a part of where we want to spend our money.
Mhm.
And be able to share that with people, because if you don't come to these, you're not part of this. It's really hard to know what's going on, I've never been to the Boardman budget. I have no idea, I don't know if it's exciting or not exciting, or they have money, don't have money, or
And you can find out.
I will say too, that there are cities that are 3 or 4 times our size and their budget isn't as big as ours.
Yeah.
And it really hasn't been that many years since our budget was barely scraping by at 20 million.
I wish I knew what it was in 2000 when I first started.
That's probably a record.
But you weren't on it.
She didn't work.
You were sitting right out there, and you weren't on it, I don't think you can remember that.
Well, I can't remember it, but I can figure
I
it
bet you can figure it out. I
I
definitely
have
can
her
figure
packet
it
at
out.
home.
So.
But anyway, this is just super exciting, and I get excited because other mayors don't have this, other cities do not have this like we do. We should be super.
Everybody across the street, across the state, has difficulty repairing their streets. For that same reason that there is no revenues for streets. And us being able to build new streets and start to repair our streets is just almost unheard of. So it is wonderful.
So I was thinking about this today, and talking to a lot of people and explaining to me, why Boardman looks the way it does, why there's not really any buildings there and all this other thing, explaining that. And I started thinking about the fact that, I mean, right now, I feel like we're building a new city. How many people could say that? That's how I'm starting to look at it, it's like, man, this is stuff that's been here forever, but it really hasn't been here compared to a lot of other towns, and so now we're seeing, we are actually building the city from the ground up, I think.
Yes.
So we've got about 10 minutes left before we need to adjourn this meeting. Are there any more questions from our budget? Okay, and I need a motion.
No, okay, I move that the city of Boardman budget committee approve the proposed city of Boardman budget for the 2025-2026 fiscal year as presented in the amount of $89,266,800 and approve property taxes at the rate of $4.24 and 0.2144 per 1,000 of assessed value for the permanent rate tax levy and in the amount of $1,187,600 for the general obligation bond budget.
I second that.
Is there any discussion? Hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yorkshire, 316, Woodland Avenue, West. I want you, everyone, I thank you guys representing our community, being on the board, being city councilman and being on the budget committee. I know we're doing the same process right now in our park, and I just, know it's time consuming, but I know as a citizen, I appreciate you guys stepping up to do this. I really want to put an emphasis that when we're doing all these streets and everything, we've got to make sure planning is adequately, so we're not turning around and carrying them right back up right afterward. That's the biggest pet peeve about the streets we have. We build nice street and then we turn around and tear them right back up, and then we just do patchwork on it. And I've heard more complaints about that. And I read that in post. And it's bothersome. And we are really trying to build a new city, like Richard said. But if we're gonna turn around and just tear them back up, that's not gonna do us any good. So as we're planning, with the projects, with the sewers and everything, we gotta be looking further down the road to make sure we're not turning around and tearing it right back up and patchworking afterwards. But I know that Paul would hate to have that street torn up again.
I remember when it collapsed from the house.
So that's my only comment. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any additional comments? Okay, I'm going to adjourn this meeting at 8:53 p.m.